Live and in person here in Epping, New Hampshire, home of three of New Hampshire's governors, of which I can name one fellow by the name of Prescott. Here you go. You asked for it, you got it, whether you like it or not. Politicking with Mr. B, your old friend, guilty as charged. Mr. B here for you. And have we got a bunch of subjects and things to go on tonight? We're going to have a very nice show, even though things have been going on with weather and so forth. Before we get into anything else, we need to attend to the business at hand. So, Mr. Plaisman, please run up the colors because we got a show on the road to do. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And when I say justice for all, I'm not talking about only one kind of person or one color of person or one color of person over here and a whole bunch of other colors over here having a party at sponsored by someone over in Harvard University or over in, say Boston. Oh, dear, should I be talking about? I say that. No, sorry. How many parties? Race. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, all kidding aside, Lady Mayor in the city of Boston goes ahead and puts out invitations for everybody that ain't white. You know what? Congratulations. You have now brought us back to the time shortly before the start of the American Civil War. Congratulations, young lady. You did it. Fantastic, wonderful, and marvelous. All of the other people of other colors are in a party, and all the white people are standing around doing something else. What a freaking moronic, idiotic, stupid, unconscionable thing to have done. And the city of Boston's people are all around going, what? What was that? Oh, look, a cricket. Yeah, right. Okay. But if this shoe was on the other foot, if the thing came from another person who happened to be a Caucasian only person and said, we're going to have this party and it's going to be Caucasians only and anybody else can freaking hang, what do you think would happen? And I'm not one to mince words. I really never have been. I've been known to be circumspect at times. This ain't one of them. Lady, you got your head so far up your ass, you can't even see your freaking belly button. I don't know whatever it possibly came about to make you do so incredibly divisive and hurtful and flagrantly stupid a thing. But this is the United States. And it's all right. Freedom of choice and so forth, and the freedom of expression and this and that. And we know what you expressed. You expressed a deep-seated desire for hatred and divisiveness and segregation. Congratulations. Well, that being said, I believe we've got an amusing little. We're coming up to the holidays here. We've got an amusing little photograph to go on to and talk about later. Speaking of governmental things and so forth, we're getting into the holiday seasons and things are so festive, So, Mr. Blazer, have you got that the photograph down from Washington? We got a nice festive little scene going on down over there. Oh yes, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. What a festive time! Thanksgiving has come and gone for the year of 2023. And many, many people have very well eaten their fill. Not everybody, of course. There are some people who are far less fortunate than others. And we do offer prayer for them and hope that things get changed. But apparently, there is one turkey in Washington who just can't seem to get enough stuffing. Ladies and gentlemen, this fellow over here that you see on his desk, which I'm told, I don't know if it's right, but I'm told it was Amy Klobuchar's desk or whatever else, is sitting here making this video and then going gobble, 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 oh, 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 getting his stuffing for the holidays, all over what has been opined, again, as I said, Amy Klobuchar, the depths of depravity. I can't even begin to think about this, how far we are sinking as a nation and as a society in our world. We are the first world section, not a third world country. Things that are going on like this is bringing us back to Sodom and Gomorrah and the ancient Roman Empire. The depths of depravity continue to find a lower bottom day by day, it seems. And it seems this particular bottom isn't going to be falling out anytime soon. He's going to have a lot to go on. This has been going on all over the place, and people are going to be talking about this for months, probably years. That's what you get for sticking your, and I quote, unquote, fucking ass out on the internet from within the cradle of liberty. You morons. You sick, twisted, warped, depraved, disgusting individuals. I'm a person, I'm a human being. Lord knows I have made mistakes in my life. Plenty of them. But this, ladies and gentlemen, this isn't a mistake. This was deliberate. This is just thumbing your nose in the direction of everything that is good and solid and wholesome and supports upstanding moral values. Unbelievable. Unbelievable how this goes. That's about all that I'm going to say about this situation, because I know I'm going to get something. And by the way, if you've got something to say about this or about what I have to say, please, by all means, write in. You can send your comments here while we're live, or you can also send. Blazeman has the email address you can send your comments to. But in the meantime, we have some other things going on now for 55 days. War has been horrendously, continuously rearing its ugly head in the Middle East between the Hamas people, the Palestine's own terrorist group, and the Israelis. That, as Benjamin Netanyahu himself had said, they didn't want war. They didn't ask for war. But the Hamas people wanted war, and they brought war. So now they have war. And by day, things for the people of Palestinian descent that live there are getting worse and worse and worse. And now we have people from around the world that keep hounding the Israelis. It's time to do another ceasefire and do humanitarian this and that, whatever else. Please, we've got some video, Mr. Blazeman. Would you please put up this video? See what's being said, and we'll talk about this. And we're having some issue with the sound, unfortunately. We'll see if we can get that technical issue corrected. In the meantime, there are people that are dying at times, it seems like, by the bushel. And you know what? Provided the fact that them being Hamas terrorists, so be it. Again, they asked for it. They are legitimate combatants. And they did have the unfortunate occurrence where there were some people said to have been people who had been kidnapped by the Hamas terrorists that were trying to escape, and they had gotten out and were. It said they were waving a white flag of truce, but unfortunately, things do happen in the heat of battle, and they did not go very well. Okay, I guess we have our issues worked out. Mr. Glazer, go ahead and launch that video for us, please.
Take you out to this live image that we do have showing up right here on your screen. This is a live look over Gaza at this hour, and I want to get to the latest on the Israel-Hamas war. The top leader of Hamas is in Egypt, we're told, for talks on another ceasefire and hostage swap. The talks come a day after Hamas fired rockets that set off sirens in central Israel, though it is important to note here that Hamas has been firing rockets at Israel for months now. We also know Israeli intelligence officials have reportedly met with the head of the CIA and Qatari officials to talk about the same here, another deal. Israel also calling on the rest of the world to blacklist Hamas as a terrorist organization, saying that it must be destroyed. I want to talk more about all of this and the latest developments, so let's bring in Tal Heinrich, a spokesperson for the Israeli government, joining us now live once again to talk about all of this. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us.
Of course, my pleasure. Thank you for having me on today, Josh.
Of course. Well, first off, I want to talk about the possible next negotiation, the next possible ceasefire hostage swap. Where does everything stand at this point? Because we learned earlier on this week that the head of the CIA and Qatari officials were meeting with Israeli officials to talk about all of this. So where does it stand?
As you know, Josh, and I know that Fox News Live has been reporting this very closely, we've had a framework that was agreed upon, according to which Hamas has released some of the hostages, and then they just broke the agreement and they started firing at us. They could not deliver another group of hostages to be released, and here we are today discussing this yet again. We said that we will bring about the release of all hostages one way or another. We will continue to pursue every possible avenue, and the only reason as for why we've seen the release of some of the hostages so far is the military pressure that we have exerted on Hamas. You see, we're hitting them hard. They wanted a breather last time, and for that reason, they have agreed to that outline that was mediated. So we will do whatever it takes to bring our sons and daughters, elderly, back home. It's been more than 2 months now. We're talking about 129 people. This is simply unacceptable.
Has the accidental killing of those 3 Israeli hostages by the IDF, we've heard a lot of talk about that, especially from the IDF, has that changed anything about the war itself, including the need or possibility here for a ceasefire?
That was a very, very tragic incident. As you said, you know, these 3 hostages, they tried to do everything they could think of in order not to appear as a threat to our forces operating in Shaja'iyya, one of the most difficult battle zones, and yet they were mistakenly identified as a threat and were shot at. You know, that area is filled with booby traps, with ambushes. These Hamas terrorists, sometimes they dress up as, in many times, they dress up as civilians. They play sound in Hebrew, even voices of children, to try to lure in our forces so they can exchange fire with them. So we've had multiple fatal encounters over there in Shaja'iyya, but we are drawing the very, very important lessons, because an incident of this kind, it can never ever reoccur again. You know, it's the worst possible scenario that we could have imagined, and our forces should have been better ready for such a scenario in which some of the hostages might have been able to flee their terrorist Hamas captors. But again, to your question, we will continue to exert military pressure on Hamas, because this is the only thing that can bring about the conditions that will eventually lead to another framework, if you will. That's the only reason why we've seen the release of some hostages so far.
And I want to talk a little bit about Hamas leader Sinwar here. We know that the IDF has reported that they have been in several tunnels where they believe that Sinwar may have been just minutes before they arrived. What can you tell me about that?
What I can tell you, I'm not commenting here on any kind of operational military activity happening on the ground or strategy moving ahead, but what I can say is that Yahya Sinwar, he signed his own death sentence on October 7th.
All right. Well, reports are also starting to circulate that one of the hostages, Noah Argamani, was not taken by Hamas, but rather by Gaza civilians. What do we know, if anything, about that right now? Again, those reports started to surface about 24 hours ago. What can you tell me?
You and I, we don't want to speculate, of course. Human lives hang in the balance here. Noah Argamani, I can tell you that her story is personally, to me, it's the top of mind. She's 25-year-old. Everyone have seen her video of how she was kidnapped from the Nova Music Festival in the South. And, you know, her mother is dying of cancer. So every moment, every second counts. This family has been going through a torture of mind, body, and soul. We must bring her back, and we will continue to do everything possible to bring about her release. But you see, we know for a fact that not only Hamas terrorists abducted our people, our children, our elderly, our sons and daughters, also members of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the second largest terrorist organization in Gaza, and also civilians in Gaza. As you saw on October 7th in multiple videos, some of them documented, by the way, by Hamas terrorists themselves. There are many civilians that broke the border and infiltrated into Israel to participate in the massacre.
And I want to talk more a little bit about a potential ceasefire here, as we know that France, the UK, Germany, they've kind of joined the global calls for a ceasefire. The U.S., of course, has not. Does any of that concern the Israeli government right now as the war is ongoing?
You see, countries of good conscience, with moral sense, with moral clarity and common sense, understand what Israel is doing. We are fighting a pure evil called Hamas here. Any kind of ceasefire that leaves Hamas in power with the ability, with the desire, with the military capability to perpetrate the October 7th massacre for a second, a third, a fourth time, as they said they would, is simply unacceptable. And any kind of ceasefire, of course, that will leave our hostages in Gaza, that is unacceptable. Israel is sending an unequivocal message against terrorism, not only to bad players, bad actors in our region, not only to Hamas, but around the world. So, you know, some of these countries, they need to better understand this, because I am sure that if it were them, they would not have tolerated anything on the scope and brutality of October 7th, and more so, you know, 16 years of hostilities, of firing missiles towards Israeli territory from Hamas.
And my last question here before I let you go, the UN Security Council is expected to meet and to vote on calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. We know the U.S. did veto a vote earlier on this month. That could, of course, happen again. But if that is approved for whatever reason there, would that mean anything to Israel overall? We know it is legally binding, but does it really change anything?
Well, I guess you and I will have to have this conversation once again. We'll see how the vote unfolds. But I'll just repeat what I told you before. A ceasefire that leaves Hamas in power is simply unacceptable. Our nation took this decision that we will no longer live next to a terrorist enclave. There's a built-in anti-Israel bloc in the United Nations. We have zero expectations from this body, and we are very thankful for our friends out there, like our best friends in Washington, who simply get it.
All right, Tal Heinrich there with the Israeli government. Thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to be here with us. Is there anything else you want to add before I let you go?
Thank you to the American people who know how to tell good from evil, right from wrong, and for standing by Israel. That's what I want to add. That's it.
Now, there you have it, folks. There is a certain portion of what this young lady had spoken about that I want to touch on. I can't touch on enough of. Remember when she had said that they said it would happen on October the 7th? That not only the terrorists themselves had breached the walls, but ordinary Palestinian citizens got involved and crossed the border, crossed the wall in, and got their digs in and did their things. It is my particular considered opinion that any person who is an ordinary citizen Otherwise, a non-combatant, maybe a shoemaker or I don't know, a bean counter, a tax accountant, whatever else, who picks up from their life and goes someplace where they're not supposed to be going, and begins partaking of criminal activity, mayhem, murder, rape, immediately becomes a terrorist like the rest. Any person who was a common, ordinary citizen, and I don't care the fact that they're the Palestinian, any person who has done this has reduced themselves immediately to a terrorist and should be dealt with exactly the same way as the rest of the people. What I say. So, that having been said, I'd like you now to watch another form of video that we have that has some other information for all of the considerations that we'll be talking about. Do we have that ready for you, Mr. Blazeman? We've got that. You can go ahead and launch the video.
Leader of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, has arrived in Cairo. Hamas has said that it won't negotiate an exchange of prisoners as long as the Israeli military operation continues in Gaza. But Israel has indicated that it's willing to agree to another pause in fighting in exchange for more hostages. Meanwhile, for the second time, the UN is delaying a vote on a resolution calling for a cessation in fighting in the Gaza Strip. Language in the resolution still stands in the way, with the UN having to compromise for a suspension of hostilities. That's watered down from the original stronger call for a ceasefire, which was in the original draft. The US has vetoed the previous resolutions. Here's the White House National Security spokesperson, John Kirby.
Don't have an update for you on the progress of talks to try to get another humanitarian pause in place so that we can get hostages out. We continue to work this literally by the hour. We don't support a permanent ceasefire at this time. It would simply validate what Hamas did on the 7th of October. It would leave them in power in Gaza, which is unacceptable to us and to our Israeli friends. And of course, it would give them a much longer timeline to prepare and plan additional attacks. We do support smaller, more localized, more targeted humanitarian pauses to get hostages out and to get more aid in.
Well, let's go live now to Gershon Baskin, a Middle East Director of International Communities Organisation. Can I just bring up that point about the UN resolution and the change of wording? Do you think that, obviously the problem has been in the past for them trying to get a resolution passed was that the US has blocked it. Do you think this change of the wording is going to work from the actual sort of terms of a ceasefire to a suspension of hostilities?
Well, it might work. It might lead to the United States abstaining on the resolution rather than vetoing it or even supporting it. Nonetheless, I don't think it would have much impact on the reality on the ground. Israel is not going to end the war or suspend the war until its war goals are met, which is dismantling Hamas's ability to continue to rule the Gaza Strip after this war is over. So with a UN resolution or without a UN resolution, the major issue of consideration right now is the hostages and the ability to bring out more hostages. And in exchange for that, Israel is apparently willing to suspend the war for a period, maybe even an extended period of up to 2 weeks, as we have been led to believe this morning in the local press.
Right, yeah, this is also, we're hearing from the President, Isaac Herzog, yesterday saying that they were ready for another pause. Do you think that's because of the amount of international pressure there has been in the last few days?
No, I think it's actually much more a result of the local pressure of the families of the hostages on the government to bring more of the hostages home. I think that the psychological warfare of Islamic Jihad and Hamas is working on Israeli society. We have now seen 5 senior citizens, people well into their 70s and 80s, being shown in Hamas and Islamic Jihad videos over the days. And people are worried about their loved ones, and there's increased pressure from within the society on the government to do more to bring the hostages home.
Well, particularly, I suppose, also because of those 3 who were killed mistakenly by IDF soldiers.
Definitely.
Yeah, you wrote the other day in a blog about this that new agreements between the parties must be based on a complete lack of trust between them. It's an interesting sentence. That just explain what you mean by it in terms of, I suppose, in terms of a bigger deal that we're talking about here, rather than just the pause in the fighting for humanitarian reasons.
Right. We have 30 years history of negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians was based on the naive belief that if we get to know each other, we work together, we would build trust that would enable us to negotiate the sensitive issues such as Palestinian statehood, borders, refugees, Jerusalem, when in fact what happened was the exact opposite. The Israelis and the Palestinians signed 6 agreements and then substantively breached every single one of those agreements. So rather than building trust, we built increasing distrust. And what I suggest, in order to give Israelis and Palestinians more confidence that we can do this better, let's enter the process with the belief that we don't trust the other side. In fact, we believe that they have no intention of implementing what they agree to. So let's build into the agreements mechanisms that will monitor and verify compliance of the agreements and benchmark them so that we can pause between phases before moving on and taking additional risks until we know that the other side has in fact implemented what they obligated themselves to do.
Okay, and just really briefly, you were involved in the negotiations between Israel and Hamas, weren't you, when it came to the release of the IDF soldier Gilad Shalit? A huge number of prisoners, Palestinian prisoners, were exchanged for that soldier. In terms of, at the moment, they seem to be talking about the more frail prisoners, hostages, and the women that they're talking about the release in the most immediate phase. When it comes to the release of the Israeli soldiers that they have, are you going to expecting similar numbers of Palestinian prisoners to be released?
Yeah, even now in this deal, if there will be a deal, Israel will be required to release a significant number of prisoners. And if Hamas is going to demand that there be a parallel release of elderly prisoners from Israel, we're talking about people who have been in prison for 20, 25, 30 years, and they're sitting so long in prison because they have murdered Israelis. So it's going to be a very difficult deal. If Israel wants to return all the hostages, the likely deal that would work with Hamas is a release of all the Palestinian prisoners in Israel, which today numbers more than 7,600 people.
Okay, well, thank you so much for talking to us, Gershon Baskin, the Middle East Director of International Communities Organization. Let's go live now to Jerusalem, and we can speak to our correspondent Yolan Nell. And as we were just saying there, it does sound like Israel is considering a pause imminently, aren't they, in terms of an exchange of hostages for prisoners?
So we've definitely seen talks really moving forward in the past day, and now we have confirmation from Hamas that its leader Ismail Haniyeh has arrived in Cairo, where he's expected to meet the intelligence chief, and both Egypt and Qatar have served this role as key mediators in deals in the past. We've had the messaging from the Israeli president saying to ambassadors of many countries meeting him yesterday that his country was ready for a new humanitarian pause in the fighting. We had the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu meeting a select group of hostage families last night, saying that bringing the hostages home remains a #1 priority. And then on top of that, adding to the domestic pressure, we've had these 2 videos in recent days released by first Hamas showing 3 older men in captivity, and then Islamic Jihad 2 men that they are continuing to hold, they say. Now that all adds to the public pressure on Mr. Netanyahu and his war cabinet to switch priorities a little at this stage where there's been very intense fighting, and look to bringing more of those hostages home.
Well, there you have it, folks. It is half an hour now into the show. We're going to take about just under 3.5 minutes break, and we will be back with you. Politics with Mr. B. Stick around. And again, if you got something to say, let's hear from you. I'll see you in a 3 to 3.
No matter what you are, I will always be with you. Doesn't matter what you do, girl. Ooh, girl, want you. No matter where you go, I will always be around. Won't you tell me what you found, girl? Ooh, girl,
And we are back here in Epping, New Hampshire, home of three of New Hampshire's governors, with politicking with Mr. B. We have been having some videos about things going on, people coming up with a possibility. Discussions are going on about possibly doing a small ceasefire in time to exchange prisoners and whatever you want to call them and get some more humanitarian aid and so forth. Now, humanitarian aid has been trying to get in and so forth and getting in, but unfortunately, whatever aid that they get in, very little of it is getting to the Palestinian people. It is being usurped, I'm told, by the Hamas fighters. And they like to take and show photographs of all these unfortunate souls that are been cut, bleeding, and so forth from the forehead or from the arm or this, that, or crying little children and blah, 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 yada, yada. A reminder about all these things. Yes, it's terrible to see these things. It's horrible to see these things. But the people of Hamas are the ones that brought this suffering onto the people there. The Israelis had no desire for this. The Israeli people were having a nice, for lack of a better word, like Woodstock kind of whatever it is, music festival party thing was going on. It was all happiness and celebrating warmth, brotherhood, love, humanity. And then this is not something the Israeli people brought to themselves. But in order to get to the point where this will not happen anymore, and you've heard it, not just from the Israeli people, you've heard it from the United States State Department as well. Yeah, I know. Don't trust everything you hear out of the government. Yeah, I know. But this we can rely on. If they were just to take and shut everything down today and go into what do you call no. The Hamas will still be there. They will rebuild their ranks. They will rebuild and work on their hate and so forth and everything else, and be at the same place and go on bombing and killing and knifing and trying to cut people's heads off, burning people alive, ripping babies out from the wombs of their mothers, then killing the mothers, then killing the babies, cutting the heads off of infants, taking live infants and putting them inside ovens and then turning the ovens on and standing around and laughing about it. Do you want that? No. Again, I can't say enough for people that are saying how terrible this is and this shouldn't be happening. You're right. It shouldn't be happening. But again, history, the annals of history and history books of all things, the Bible, are filled with stories of entire civilizations laying to waste. Bad things must happen so that good can be accomplished. It sucks, doesn't it? But guess what? This has to happen. There's no other choice now. And on top of all of these other things that are happening, if you haven't noticed, or maybe you've been a little disconnected, there are other factions now in other areas of the Middle East that are pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing into war. So bad now. The attacks that are going on and savage things that are happening are so bad that commercial shipping is now saying they're no longer going to be going into the Red Sea. They're going to wind up rerouting all of their shipping down around the continent of Africa, go around Cape the Horn, Cape of Good Hope, all of that, adding not days, weeks, months at times onto charges for shipping, and God knows what it's going to cost in fuel expenses, time. There's people that work on those ships, they happen to get paid, and every day they're on those ships, they're shipping a container full of these pens. Those people get paid for working 10 days. They get paid for working 100 days. What do you think is going to cost for this pen if they got to get paid to work for 100 days? And the distance that this pen has to travel went from 3,000 miles to 17,000 miles. What do you think is going to happen? Now, I believe, I hope, Mr. Blazeman, there was a connection for a video. Do we have that? I put something up through. Are you there? Do we have that video available? No, I guess not yet. But okay, it's coming. It's coming soon, ladies and gentlemen. There is a video about what's been going on over in the sea at the hand of the Houthis. Now, these are people I myself, I will be honest with you, I never heard of the Houthis. I've heard of Houthi the Blowfish, but I never heard of the Houthis. And these people are, again, another a terrorist arm of Islamic fundamental extremist terrorist people. And this is what they're doing. They're lobbing shells and rockets and this and that and here and there and whatever else, all over the place, causing mayhem, injuring, wounding, maiming, to say nothing also of the damage that they're doing to commercial shipping. And this is stuff that is going to affect things not just on a regional basis, but the world entire. The entire world relies on shipping from one place to another. How are we doing there, Blaze?
Sorry, I just had a bad connection. Continue.
I'm so sorry. These Houthi people or whatever follow it far enough back, and they are connected. They're being fed and being supported by what comes the Iranian government. And people say, "Oh, you don't know." Look, I was around in the days when they had the Shah of Iran, and the people were all starting. Ladies and gentlemen, okay, yeah, sure. We'll try that again. Ladies and gentlemen, it looks like we are back. I apologize, of course, for the issues. We've been having some technical issues. You can't win them all. It happens. It's something. So, all right. Well, as I was saying, I was going on with the thing with the Houthis. I remember back in the days, back when we had the Shah of Iran, and they started doing all of these, when the radical Islamic movement had really started going and whatever else. And the Shah of Iran, who was a peaceful leadership and government that was friendly to Western interests was overthrown by Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. Khomeini. Some say Khomeini, some say Khomeini, or whatever else. I don't know. Whatever it is. Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini and all his thugs and so forth that got in, and they had kidnapped American people back then. And I was about 470 something days. The people were held in captivity, and we're seeing the same garbage going on now. And even back then, I remember when these things were going on before the government of the Shah of Iran had fallen. I remember the battle cries of the people. I can remember vividly hearing the words, "The Shah of Iran is a Jew, the Shah of Iran is a Jew, the Shah of Iran is a Jew," and they headed death to America, blah blah blah, this and that, yada yada. It's the same. It's the same thing. These people are a one-trick pony. They don't want anything around that goes against how they believe and how they feel and how they think things should be run. And they run their people with an iron fist. As a matter of fact, news came today that Iran just executed a great number of people. So we've got this video. Mr. Blazeman is ready to launch for us. Mr. Blazeman, please go ahead and let's see what's going on with the shipping.
Now, shipping companies are bracing for weeks of disruption to their normal routes after several of them announced they would avoid passing through the Red Sea. This follows multiple attacks on shipping by Yemen-based Houthi rebels. The United States has revealed it's considering designating the Houthis as a terrorist group. The National Security Council has said the issue is now under review. Here's our business reporter, David Waddell.
These attacks have had a huge impact. Here's one. This video by the Houthis shows them storming a British-registered cargo ship last month. In recent days, the escalation of attacks have encouraged a series of shipping companies to announce they would suspend their movements through the Red Sea and embark on the much longer passage around the southern tip of Africa. That's costing time and money and a huge impact on carbon emissions. The attacks have been widely denounced. The US, the European Union, NATO and several countries, including Yemen, have issued a joint statement of condemnation. They said there is no justification for these attacks, which affect many countries beyond the flags these ships sail under. And they called on all states to refrain from facilitation or encouragement of the Houthis. The US National Security Council is now reviewing the status of the Houthi rebels, with mounting concerns about the impact on the global economy.
These companies obviously have to make their own decisions based on the safety and security of their vessels and their crews, and we respect that. But I think it's just too soon to know what kind of impact it's actually going to have on the global economy. That's why, quite frankly, because we're trying to get ahead of the problem set here, that's why we're standing up this coalition and trying to flesh it out and be able to counter these threats so that transit through the Red Sea can be safer and more secure than it is right now.
The Houthis say the international coalition formed to protect shipping through the Red Sea is an integral part of aggression against the Palestinian people, Gaza and the Arab and Islamic nations.
David Waddell there. Well, I discussed what's at stake with Joshua Mahoney. He's Chief Market Analyst at Scope Markets. I asked him for his thoughts on the supply chain challenge that has escalated in recent days.
Ultimately, we're looking at something that is the biggest disruption since that 2021 crisis where we saw the Ever Given stuck sideways in the Suez Canal. Everyone at the time remembers it and sort of remembers the impact on global trade, but certainly that lasted 1 week and looking forward now, we're looking at a perspective for a long drawn out problem that really faces very little in terms of easy solutions. You do have the potential for this sort of 10-strong coalition to move into the area, and that has provided some respite in terms of market fears. We did see oil prices come off a little bit off of that, but certainly I think there's going to be problems in trying to enact that, and until we see that area created into a sort of safe zone, you're going to see these continued long-haul journeys around the south of Africa, and that's going to impact the supply of everything from grains to oils to cars, and certainly that provides the basis for a difficult environment for people around the world when it comes to the possibility for greater inflation. That's going to be a big worry for the markets.
Well, I was just looking at some of the detail here because I've got statistics here. It says the price to ship a container now from China to the Mediterranean has gone up by 44% in December. And we know that shipping prices have been high anyway, unusually high since the pandemic, coming down obviously in recent months. But still, it was a real issue for many big retailers, the cost of shipping stuff around. It will get passed on to us all, won't it?
It will. I mean, there's a number of elements to this, of course. This is going to lower the availability of ships. It's going to increase the cost of hiring a ship. If someone has one that they're supposed to be taking up and moving a good within, a week's time, it's probably not going to come in a week, because this adds 7 to 14 days of travel between Asia and Europe. So suddenly they're not going to arrive on time, and this really does back up over time. If you look back to that 2021 crisis, once again, it came at a time when we did have particularly tight supply concerns at that moment. We don't necessarily have that at the moment, so there is some leeway, but I would say that gradually this could become more and more of an issue, and certainly if the Houthi rebels are essentially saying they need the Israeli incursion into Gaza to end for them to stop these attacks, then this promises to be a much more drawn out process compared to what happened in 2021, when they essentially had a number of ships just waiting for it to clear up, and that's when they passed through. This could be a much bigger problem.
Okay, now that statement that they made, that they had reported that the Houthis had said about what was going on. The only thing I have to say about that is I've seen less bullshit in Pamplona, Spain, on the running of the bulls than is coming out of the mouths of the Houthis, or whatever these people are, whatever they want to call themselves, or however you pronounce it. Nothing but absolute bullshit, rhetoric, and nonsense. These people are terrorists, and they are seeking to do, first and foremost, eliminate Jews from Israel. And after that, eliminate everything else that isn't them. We should pay them no further mind other than the fact that if they're going to do something, then if they're going to be flies, and they're going to be pests, and they're going to be terrorists, then we need to swat the flies, kill the pests, and put the terrorists down. And that's all there is to it. Getting back to what I was saying before about what's going on with Iran, who is unquestionably, they're the ones who are backing these Houthis and all of these other little subculture, whatever it is, terrorist groups that are popping up and lobbing bombs all over the place. The Iranians, who are going far over and above and far beyond what has been allowed them for their uranium enrichment programs, which is supposed to be for nuclear power only. It is well known now that they've gone there into making weapons grade material. It is only a matter of time before these people start threatening to go, or maybe even actually doing, lobbing some form of thermonuclear device. So we need to be as close on our guard. We need to be as vigilant and as watchful and as careful and as prepared as we possibly can. Because no one knows exactly what's going to happen or when it's going to happen in the world, except for the people that are planning to do it. So the best way to stay out of trouble, get away from trouble, is to not be there when it happens. Well, if you're there, if someone chooses to follow you and to visit trouble upon you, the next best thing you can do is be as prepared as you possibly can. We're looking at things on a whole different level than even in the time of the Cold War after World War II. Because we're looking at people who are driven not only by governmental concerns or whatever else, but an ideal. They're driven in some warped, contorted view of what they believe religion tells them they're supposed to be doing. We've got another video coming up. I'm told my engineer, Mr. Blazeman, has brought something for us. Mr. Blazeman, please, by all means, I'd be interested in hearing.
U.S. defense officials saying the USS Carney shot down 14 attack drones in the Red Sea launched from areas of Yemen controlled by Houthi rebels. The Houthis say they were targeting Israel. This is just the latest in a series of instances since October 7th of U.S. ships destroying drones and missiles launched by the Iran-backed rebels either directly at Israel or at ships they believe are connected to Israel. The Red Sea, the Gulf of Aden, the Suez Canal all see about 30% of the world's container ships, and now several major shipping companies say their ships will not use that route, which could impact the global economy.
That's right. Ongoing skirmishes between the United States and the Iran-backed Houthi rebels in the Red Sea are further legitimizing concerns that the war in Gaza will expand to a broader war in the region. Now let's get to a timeline of events involving the United States fighting Houthi rebels as the Houthis basically retaliate against Israel for what it is carrying out in the Gaza Strip. So after Israel began carrying out its aerial bombardment of Gaza, which has killed thousands of innocent civilians, including women and children, basically, Houthi rebels started to retaliate in the Red Sea with their own military operations. So the Yemeni group has basically been targeting commercial ships in protest over Israel's war in Gaza. And they're disrupting one of the world's busiest shipping routes, maritime trade. In response to the war in Gaza, the Houthis have said that they would target any ship that travels specifically to Israel and does not stop if Israel refuses to stop its aerial bombardment and military operations in the Gaza Strip, and also refuses to allow for humanitarian aid to enter the Gaza Strip. And they're also reiterating that they're specifically targeting ships headed toward Israel. Other maritime trade will not be disrupted by them. That is what they're claiming.
There you have it. It's, we hate Jews and we hate what you're doing to help Jews, so we're going to attack these people and try to hurt everybody else. Why? Because we hate Jews. That's basically exactly what's going on. This isn't going to solve itself. This is not going to solve itself. And clearly, there is no clear way to turn around and just make it go away. This is a business that is going to languish for a very long time. And we are all going to have to just suck it up and realize that there's only one way to deal with this. Protests aren't going to help. Calls for ceasefires and whatever else aren't going to help. These people don't want peace. They want their own peace and everyone else wiped off the face of the earth and out of their way. The world cannot let this happen. We cannot stand idle by and let terrorists and tyrants trample on everybody else. We know as soon if they succeed in going through Israel and wiping Israel out, Who's next? Christianity. This is their game. This is how it goes. The choice now is up to us. Are we going to sit around and keep picking our nose out in some sit in or die in or wherever the hell they do over in Harvard University and Yale and Cornell and whatever else? People need to get their heads out of their ass and wake up and smell the freaking coffee that's brewing. Because this is what the world really is. Those all things having been said, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much for watching. If you got something to say, we'd love to hear it from you. I'm Mr. B. Thank you very, very much. I want to wish you all a happy, healthy, Merry Christmas, and we will see you again very soon. From myself, from Blazeman, and from all the people here at FFN Network, have a good night and a great holiday.